I think that the hourly rate model is going to be under huge pressure as AI helps us become more efficient. I think that this is something that one, partners need to be offering, and two, customers need to be asking for.
Yeah.
So this is part of why I think Dynamics partners in general are going to be under huge financial pressure in the next several years. And the ones that will win are the ones that can become more Azure partner like.
Andrew Welch and I have been in a month-long battle with our calendars and finally found a mutual 30-minute slot to talk about some important topics for partners and customers today. Well, we realized that 30 minutes was not going to get us very far. So this is part one. Enjoy. Andrew Welch, how are you?
I'm great. Steve, thanks for having me.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm very excited to be speaking to a person who I would consider to be at the top of the field of enterprise solution architecture, which is rare air and far more complicated, I think, than a lot of people might realize, especially in the SMC space, where
Yeah.
the stakes are higher, the costs are higher, the risks are higher of mistakes. And I know you recently launched your own firm, Cloud Lighthouse,
Yes.
to provide this kind of advisory services to those customers in that space. How's that going?
Yeah, Steve, as you might imagine, I was nervous before we launched, and I launched Cloud Lighthouse this past January, but I'm no longer nervous. It turns out that the intuition that I had, and especially the intuition that my wife had, and
Right?
she's in the Microsoft space as well, that this was something important and very valuable, has proven true. And what I'm basically doing is I'm working with CIOs, chief data officers, chief information security officers, as they're making this big transition to go from often being the superintendent of a utility company, right? Does the email
Yeah.
send? Do the phones ring? Does the data
Yeah.
leak? To needing to be more strategic leaders of their business. So I'm helping those organizations build and execute and architect their cloud plus their AI strategies.
Yeah.
I'm working with some investors. So kind of a profile on this would be, you have a private equity company that either is looking to acquire a technology company themselves and wants to validate if that technology is real and if this technology is appropriate to the task. Or maybe you have a private equity company that has acquired a company that has nothing to do with tech, at least information technology, right? Could be a utilities
Yeah.
company. And they're looking to fold new organizations or new acquisitions into their business, and they need a cloud strategy in order to do that. And the third type of group that I'm working with are Microsoft partners who are maybe they're trying to enter a new geographic market, or maybe they're trying to retool themselves for this cloud-driven era of AI, and I'm helping them grow and build their practices, and it's been amazing so far.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought there because today the value of a lot of companies, regardless of the industry that they're in, is their technology.
Yeah.
And companies are going out there to acquire some big, I don't know, a farm implementation tools company or something like that, and thinking they're buying the tools, but really it's anymore it's the technology that is allowing them to build those tools efficiently, sell those tools, and maintain those tools. There's a big component of what they're buying, and I think a lot of people that are acquiring aren't doing enough homework on that part of the house because they just really don't even know what they're looking at. They just assume it's working.
And one of the things actually, I think that's at the sort of must do end of the spectrum. Do not
Mhm.
buy a company without doing your due diligence on the technology. And, for no fault of, an investor or folks who have spent their career in financial services, they're not used to evaluating the technology component of
Right.
a manufacturer or a retail company or a law firms, or, but anyway, they're just not
Sure.
used to evaluating that. But what I'm also seeing at the top end of that, we'll call it the spectrum of thoughtfulness, is companies that are not in the technology business per se, not in the IT business per se, but I'm actually talking with more and more of them about, hey, if you become a tech-driven leader in your space, you also then kind of set yourself up as a prospective ISV in a very industry-specific way. So why build the thing just for you when you can monetize the thing you built to run your own operation? And that's, I think, a really new and interesting area that I'm seeing more of these firms think about.
Yeah, it is. We've been hearing more of that over the years. We've tried to kind of push that motion to fruition, but people seem to be kind of selfish and thinking that they're, inventing the wheel when really they're just reinventing the wheel. And maybe you've got better technology today. You think about, there's lots of targeted IP out there, industry solutions for, construction industry or whatever that have been around for years. And we're seeing more customers now looking at, what, that has always worked, but it was never perfect. And now we've kind of got the tool set to make a perfect version of that. And that's always been my thought. And I've been thinking about it for myself. Well, if you're not going to do it, let us do it then. Let us take, your domain knowledge, build this better solution than the legacy one that everybody's using, and we'll go out there and bring it to the masses. But there does seem to be a lot of, nope, this is going to be just for us. So I think there's a lot of people rebuilding wheels out there.
I have a mentor who I think so highly of and respect him a great deal. Guy named Vishwas Lely, and he is the longtime chief technology officer at a U.S.-based Microsoft partner called Applied Information Sciences, and he's a Microsoft regional director. And he gave me some advice a few years back that I won't remember the exact wording, so these are my wording, not his, but this was the idea. Basically, Andrew, almost none of us have the idea for the next big billion-dollar company, right? So the value to the value of an idea or a concept or a product to the individual that came up with it or to the firm that came up with it is in sharing it, right? Not in hoarding it. Now, I don't think you can be indiscriminate about this. You obviously want to protect your IP and to do this in a way that's going to allow you to continue to thrive as a business. But he really helped me become a big believer in the power of sharing ideas rather than hoarding them.
Yeah. We've done that. There was a point in time where I was a hoarder also. For many years, just trying to keep stuff under wraps. But I've even had some of my partners over the years get a little concerned when I started sharing stuff that, hey, you're giving away some secrets. Here, you're giving away how we built something, or you're telling people how it works. Don't tell people how it works. But yeah, that has definitely been probably the best thing that I've done career-wise, is start sharing what I've learned about how stuff works.
One of what's fascinating is that I think that most people would imagine the hoarding concept to be an economic consideration, but I do a lot of work with public sector and big public sector like organizations, right? So think international non-governmental organizations of a sort of UN, United Nations variety and similars. And folks in this space, there's not an economic disincentive not to share, right?
Yeah.
But I'm always fascinated by how so many organizations in the public and the quasi-public sector space are all trying to solve the same problems as well. So yeah, I think that I also think that the technology is evolving too quickly nowadays for you to really be long-term successful if you don't share and if you don't learn from others. You need tremendous capital to be able to just staff your organization with enough expertise to keep up nowadays.
Yeah. What do you think about, I was reading something the other day about some of the big organizations that have got a lot of data. Think like, Mayo Clinic or somebody like this. It's got, tons and tons of data, but it's proprietary in their mind, right? This is data that we've generated through our, research and stuff like that. And, we're not going to let, ChatGPT just go scan it. for anybody to consume, but there is some thinking about how about if we just create our own AI model on our own data, license, subscribe to that or something like that. But now we're in this potential mode where we've got all these big caches of valuable data that's all being re-siloed, kind of hoarded by all these individuals. And you have to think that if we had all the data from all of these organizations, a lot more problems could be solved than if they just keep hoarding it. I think it's probably what has slowed down, medical advancements and everything else out there is the fact that these people aren't really sharing the good stuff. They're sharing a certain level, but they're not sharing the good stuff. And you got all this good stuff caught in these little caches in these organizations that aren't going to let it go.
So I have so many thoughts on that. We could run for hours. First of all, most organizations, in fact, to date, every organization that I've seen they don't really actually have that great of an idea about the data that they have. They don't really know exactly what that data is. They don't really know exactly where that data is stored. And most organizations certainly have not done the hard work to make that data ready for modern uses, whether that's AI or whether that's enterprise search or whether that's analytical workloads or whatever. So I would say at the moment a full 50% of all the work that I'm doing is with big organizations that are trying to build their version of a modern data platform. And I have a white paper coming out soon with Microsoft. Title is still in progress, but it's basically how to marry up and what are the patterns for integrating Power Platform and a modern data platform so that you can kind of accelerate application development in data at the same rate. But neither here nor there. So I think that first of all, to hoard, it's almost like you're hoarding something that you don't know exists or that you sort of intuitively know exists. But I also think, and by the way, I'm not advocating for just opening your data to the public internet and letting anyone have at it. But I do think that on the positive side, there is so much upside, right, of selectively and responsibly sharing your data with others that the economic incentive, I think, is going to become more and more clear in over the coming years. On the downside, I also think it's a losing battle. Right? I think that even if you don't even if you disagree, it's one of those things that the world is coming for your data. You can either make this an opportunity or treat it as a threat. And the final thing that I would say is that almost nobody is training their own AI models, right? So what is much more common, right, is that someone is using an AI-enabled technology like Copilot Studio to, build capabilities that act on a pre-trained model that maybe use some of your data. Maybe what you're doing is you're employing a RAG pattern, retrieval augmented generation, and you're really in a custom way augmenting a pre-trained model with data that you own. But almost nobody is out there building their own AI models, and that's probably not the business that almost every organization wants to be in right now.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that before any sharing could take place, you have to have your own house in order to even know what to share. Yes. And I think that this is going to, I think that executives and leaders in business have probably long assumed that their data was just shit. But I think what they're going to, but it hasn't hurt them, at least in their, they haven't felt the pain from that. But now with this push for AI, and I think it was one of the first things I said when this stuff started popping out and everybody's eyeballs were going, wow, look how cool this is. And I'd say, step one isn't that. Step one has got to be the data, or that is useless. And now we're at that point where AI and copilots are really pointing this big spotlight on your big pile of shit data. That you assumed was there. You weren't certain to the extent. Now I think people are going to see the extent. And that's a huge business, I think, just cleaning up data estates for use.
Yeah.
Not fun. It's not fun work.
Yeah, I think that most organizations have spent the last 30 years kicking the data can down the road, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yes, we could do this properly, or we could just do this in an access database. We'll do it the easy way today and let future us, or more likely, my successor, deal with the
right.
mess that we are creating. And in fairness to the folks, which is 99% of the professional population who did that, right?
Yeah,
In fairness to them, I don't think that anyone really saw that coming. Um, but yeah, firms, this is a bed that almost every organization has made and now find themselves sleeping in.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm going to pivot a little bit over to, obviously AI is new and people are grappling with that, but there's other things that are happening that are new. And one of them, I think, kind of follows on from the idea of cloud in the first place, right? When we moved from on-premise cloud, where you paid a lot of money for a bunch of equipment, to go in and maintain the equipment, then we moved to this rental model where you just paid a monthly fee.
Right.
And that was a transition that was, I think, challenging for a lot of companies. That most all have made that transition now, but certainly the early days of that, people understanding their worth in an organization, an IT organization, I think, was at stake. There were lots of false flag challenges out there about that business. And now we're seeing we're starting to see the kernels of a services model moving in those directions also, kind of moving from that big blocks into, subscriptions. And I know that's something you guys are exploring or moving forward with in your cloud lighthouse.
Yeah, so I think that this is a one of the big but not yet quite so talked about changes in the economics and in the market of IT services. So I had thought for some time about what I call the tyranny of the deliverable, right?
Mhm.
This is this phenomenon where IT budgets are tied to baskets of requirements, and those baskets of requirements are given to a team. So it might be to your data team or to your RPA team or to your app dev team or whoever. And the budget follows the requirements. And then the team, maybe they're going to go, maybe it's an internal team, maybe you've gone to hire a partner or a consultancy. And and but the goal of the project, the goal of the effort becomes spending the money that has been allocated to the basket of requirements, not actually producing results or outcomes
Yeah,
for
right.
for the organization. And I think that this is sort of a long-standing problem that we've been realizing what a disaster it is at a rather glacial pace over the last several years. What I think is accelerating or exacerbating the issue, right, is that traditionally, traditionally IT has been very much budgeted and organized around the idea of the implementation, right? So we are going to implement this business application. We're going to
It's a
implement the
project.
ERP. It's a
It's a
project, right?
project.
It's a project,
Yep.
and I think that you know this was all well and good in previous times when everything was on premise. You were going to have a natural upgrade cycle every several years anyway, where you needed to upgrade to the latest version. And what we've seen in the last couple of years is that the last of those upgrade cycles, I think, has really ended. So for Microsoft partners or consultancies, the the gravy train, right, of hey, we at least are going to be able to charge customers to do a major re-implementation every several years. I think that's over.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the partners that are oversubscribed on project-based revenue, I think, are in huge trouble. Um, and so I think that they either need to figure out what that business model is going to be moving forward, or they need to adopt what I think you and I would call the subscription-based business
Yep.
model, or and really kind of focus on. And there's some technological considerations there that we can get into that I think we should, but really focus on outcomes and kind of consistent service delivery and true long-term strategic partnership with their
Yeah,
customers rather than bleeding their customers dry on this ERP implementation, fully expecting that once we're done, we're going to walk away for a few years.
sure.
Those days are done. They are over.
I think so. I think that, when we launched we moved over, as you know, about close to 2 years ago now, from a hours based model, which most of these models are, even if it's a fixed cost, it's based on there's hours at the bottom of it, over to a subscription service model that initially we had lots of partners reaching out to me say, yeah, we already do that. And I was kind of digging into what they're doing, and
No, they don't.
they were doing managed support services, right? So break,
Yes,
fix,
exactly.
ticket stuff. Well,
Yes.
that's great. And so that means that a lot of partners actually have an understanding of a recurring revenue
Mhm.
model tied to a specific, tightly scoped set of services. But we kind of said, we need to break that open a little bit, because the challenge for me with customers at the time that really forced us into this motion, my partner Vlad and I, was the clock.
Yeah.
There's, customers are never going to get the most value out of the available solutions when they can't take their eye off the clock. And
Right.
they're staring at the clock the whole time when you're on that model. They're
Mhm.
watching the hours rise or get consumed, or however those hours are going through. They're very cognizant of each hour. And like you talked about with relationships, we have a white paper out there that we did a little while ago about really kind of transitioning from hours-based models to a subscription model. And a lot of that premise is about that relationship. I mean, when you're going into a customer with an hours-based model and you're quoting some number of hours for them to accept and say, yeah, let's move forward, what have you. The minute that project is accepted, you're in an antagonistic relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unavoidable. It's unavoidable. As a
Yeah.
partner, you want to charge as many hours as possible. That's how you make your money. As a customer, you want to buy and pay for as few as possible. That's how you meet your budget goals. So there's an antagonistic relationship from the jump. And I think
Well,
that the subscription model has overcome that. It's been our
yeah.
experience has overcome that to a great degree.
Well, and when I started Cloud Lighthouse, and right now Cloud Lighthouse is just me. I'm hopeful that one or a couple partners will join me in
Sure.
the coming medium term. Um, but when I started Cloud Lighthouse, I have no desire to work with people transactionally, right?
Yeah.
So I have gone all in on this. I charge a few organizations by the hour because it's kind of a legacy
Yeah.
arrangement, we'll say. But the way that all of the new work that I'm doing is on a subscription base, right? It's, hey, this is what Andrew costs for the quarter, or this is what Andrew costs for the year, and I am all you can eat. Call me anytime.
Yeah.
And the reason that I've done that is because, by the way, I actually kind of use my basis of estimate when I calculate my rate for that, and I discount it from what I would charge by the hour. Because one, it's better for me to have
Yep.
that kind of collaborative long-term relationship. And two, I want my clients to bring me their problems without thinking, oh my God, Andrew's going to send me a bigger bill if I
Yeah.
do this. I
Exactly.
want to help them over the long term. So I think that it's hugely important. And frankly, I think not to beat the AI horse, right? But even if you don't buy, even if you're a consultancy that doesn't buy into what Steve and Andrew are telling you right now, you should at least be concerned that if AI, which almost every partner is out there hawking with great enthusiasm, if
All
AI
experts,
can
by the
do
way.
all experts. If AI can do frankly, half of the shit that people say it can do, right?
Mhm.
That's an enormous threat to the time and materials model. Because if one of your developers or consultants can do, four times the work in an hour, then what happens to your hourly rate? So we just as an industry have to be transitioning to models, and maybe subscription isn't the one. It probably is one of several, but we have to be transitioning to models that are economically fit for purpose with today's technology and frankly what customers are looking for.
Yeah, and I think on the client side, there's an adjustment to thinking also, because as partners you can make a decision. I'm going to start offering my services in a completely different way, but
Mhm.
you've got to have customers willing to accept a completely different way than what they're also familiar with,
Yeah.
and that's a mindset shift that I think one of the things that has happened. We started with Dynamics when they first launched CRM Online, not the
Mhm.
previous. So we kind of missed the whole that whole on-premise days, thankfully, because we came from Salesforce, which was cloud from the jump. So, but I remember when we came on board, there was one product, it's
Mhm.
called Dynamics 365, and it
I
was
think it was
45
called, wasn't it just Dynamics CRM at the time? The
Dynamics CRM Online, and it was 44
Dynamics
bucks a
CRM
month,
Online.
and it
That's right.
included
That's right.
everything. So, yeah, at that point, it was more of a project, right? Let's install
Yeah.
this one thing that we have and
Mhm.
use it. But since then, the Power Platform, everything has exploded. There's probably, 40 products across that portfolio. So the project mentality is being attacked now, I think. The idea
Absolutely.
that it's a project.
Yeah, absolutely. The project is dying a slow death, and it's never going to go away entirely. But for any partners out there that are listening to this conversation, I think you're in real trouble if you don't adopt
Yeah.
some new and more forward-looking business models. And to any customers that are out there, if you're hiring a Microsoft partner, this is the kind of creative thinking you need to be looking for, because your experience with them, the whole incentive structure of your relationship with them is going to be so much more productive and so much less antagonistic if you choose partners that are really, bought into this way of working.
I know we didn't put a lot of time on the calendar for this, but I definitely would like to continue this conversation maybe in a future episode. Maybe this is kind of a introduction
Yes.
to some deeper topics. But where can people reach you that need to?
Yeah, so my website, cloudlight.house. That's dot house.
Okay,
And then I'm Andrew.welch, Welch, at cloudlight.house, or at Andrew D. Welch, D as in David, on Twitter, X, what have you.
sounds good, man. Andrew, it
Yeah,
was great chatting with you, even for this
likewise.
brief amount of time, and we'll do this again and continue this conversation.
Let's do an hour next time. See ya.
Sounds good, man. All right, have a good one.
You too.
Andrew Welch and I have been in a month-long battle with our calendars and finally found a mutual 30-minute slot. Andrew Welch and I have been in a month-long battle with our calendars and finally found a mutual 30-minute slot to talk about some important topics for partners and customers today. Well, we realized that 30 minutes was not going to get us very far. So this is part one. Enjoy.